Charlestown is the oldest neighborhood in Boston, with quaint streets full of colorful old houses, gorgeous brownstones, and amazing views of the Boston skyline. It is also home to many historic sites, including the Charlestown Navy Yard, one of the oldest shipbuilding facilities in the U.S. Navy, and the Bunker Hill Monument. In this video, we will take you on a day trip through Charlestown and show you all the best things this neighborhood has to offer. Our first stop is the Charlestown Navy Yard, which is one of the oldest shipbuilding facilities in the United States Navy. The yard dates back to 1800 and was a working part of the Navy until it was decommissioned in the 1970s. Thousands of workers in the Charlestown Navy Yard built over 200 ships and repaired thousands more over its 174-year history. Today you will find here two historic ships, the Cassin Young and USS Constitution, the USS Constitution Museum, as well as a variety of artifacts and buildings. You will also find some stellar views of downtown Boston. Today we'll take you with us to visit these attractions. Our first stop is the Cassin Young Museum Ship. The Cassin Young ship is a Fletcher-class destroyer built during World War II. In naval terminology, a destroyer is a fast, long-endurance warship intended to escort larger vessels and defend them against attackers. The ship engaged in several Pacific battles in World War II and survived 2 kamikaze hits. Here in Charlestown, the Navy Yard built dozens of similar ships during the war. In the 1950s, Cassin Young and many other destroyers received regular repairs and modernization in Charlestown. The ship is named after Captain Cassin Young, who was awarded the Medal of Honor for heroism during the attacks of Pearl Harbor. You can walk around the ship and take a look inside some of the rooms. They also offer special access guided tours into areas of the ship that are closed to the general public, and you can inquire about these tours when you board the ship. My favorite part of the tour was going up to the pilot house, and I also liked seeing the barber shop and the hairstyles that were in fashion back in the day. Now that we're done touring the ship, I would recommend taking a look around the yard. I personally find the dry dock pretty cool. This dry dock has played an important role in shipbuilding at the Charlestown Navy Yard. Today it's in use for repair work on the Constitution and the Cassin Young ships. And actually in 2015, the Constitution entered the dry dock for 3 years of repairs. Our next stop is the USS Constitution. The complex that houses the ship also has a visitor center, and to get in, you will need to go through security and a metal detector. The USS Constitution, also known as Old Ironsides, is a wooden frigate of the United States Navy and was first launched in 1797. It's the Navy's oldest commissioned ship still afloat. She was built at Edmund Hart's shipyard in the North End. You can also check out our ultimate guide to the North End in the link above. The Constitution was one of the most heavily armed ships of the era. She is most noted for her actions during the War of 1812 against the British, when she captured numerous merchant ships and defeated several warships. The ship has 3 floors that you can explore, and you can also find some very knowledgeable guides that will tell you stories about the artifacts on the ship. My favorite was this grog barrel. The sailors had to drink their portion in front of their officer, so he could make sure that they wouldn't get too drunk. You may also notice that the cannons have a British crown on them, which is pretty strange. These guns are actually replicas that were made in the 1920s when the ship was under restoration. The lieutenant in charge led the Navy to believe that the Constitution had British guns, which was not true. So here we are, with British guns on an American ship. When we came to Charlestown, there was some rain with scattered thunderstorms, and we were forced off the ship until the rain cleared up. One tip about your visit to Charlestown: rainy days are not ideal for visiting. We would also recommend stopping by the Visitor Center, where you can learn more about the Constitution and the history of the Navy Yard. Here you will also find a gift shop if you're on the lookout for souvenirs. We will also make a stop at the USS Constitution Museum, which is free to enter. I was quite pleasantly surprised by this museum, as they have many interesting and interactive exhibits which are fun for both kids and adults. The Nation's Ship was actually quite a good movie, and we even watched it twice. In addition to learning about the history of the USS Constitution, you can learn how to fire a cannon, save a goat from falling off the ship, and take a quiz to see if you would be recruited as a sailor. I didn't quite pass the test. Sleeping for less than 4 hours? No thanks. For lunch, we stopped by Pier 6, a waterfront restaurant with gorgeous views of the harbor and city skyline. They serve classic and local New England dishes and have outdoor seating with a roof deck and patio. We got the smoked salmon Benny, which came with poached eggs on a buttery English muffin with home fries and a salad on the side. The salmon was super fresh and the egg was cooked perfectly. We also got an order of steamed mussels, which came with fluffy and soft focaccia bread. These were the biggest mussels I've ever seen. We also loved that there was enough bread to soak up all the sauce. The mussels were full of flavor and the portion size of this dish was huge. Overall, this restaurant is a fun place to stop by on your visit to Charlestown. Our next stop is the Bunker Hill Monument, but before that we wanted to grab a sweet treat, so we took a bit of a detour to Sorelle Bakery. The bakery has a variety of sweet treats and refreshing drinks with indoor and outdoor seating. Since Boston summers can get quite hot and humid, we decided to go for something refreshing. We got a ginger pineapple smoothie and it was super delicious. The ginger flavor wasn't too strong, but just enough so you could still taste it. Now we finally made it to the Bunker Hill Monument. We would recommend walking up Monument Ave, which has super nice views of the monument. This site is also the very last stop of Boston's Freedom Trail, a 2.5-mile path leading to 16 nationally significant historic sites. The Bunker Hill Monument commemorates the Battle of Bunker Hill, which was the first major battle between the British and New England colonists in the American Revolutionary War. This monument was erected in the 1840s, about 50 years after the battle. It is made of granite and stands 221 feet or 67 meters tall, which corresponds to about 20 stories high. You can climb all the way up to the tip top for some nice panoramic views of Boston. Now this climb is not the easiest, which is why we saved it as our last destination in our Charlestown itinerary, as you will likely get quite sweaty climbing up the 294 steps. They only allow 20 people into the monument at a time, but we generally found that there is no line. Once you make it to the top, you will find a small room, and luckily there is a bench to sit down and rest. There are also a few windows with some very nice views. If you decide to climb all the way up, make sure you go on a nice clear day to make it worth the climb. The whole trip up and down takes about 20 to 30 minutes, and luckily going down the stairs turned out to be a lot easier than going up. Our next stop will be the Bunker Hill Museum. The Bunker Hill Museum, which is right across the street from the monument, exhibits the stories of the Battle of Bunker Hill, the construction of the monument, and the history of the Charlestown neighborhood. My favorite was seeing the history of the monument's design. In 1825, the Bunker Hill Monument Association issued an invitation to submit design drawings for the proposed monument. Although they were open to any design, they had an initial preference for columns. After reviewing the designs, which are displayed in the museum, they decided a column was not the best choice. Instead, they decided to go for a monument in an obelisk form. In the upstairs area of the museum, you will find an in-depth guide to the Battle of Bunker Hill, as well as dioramas and multimedia to help you visualize the battle outside. Overall, we would definitely recommend stopping by this museum. We then decided to grab some food, and so we stopped by the Warren Tavern. The Warren Tavern is one of the most historic taverns in the U.S. It is the oldest tavern in Massachusetts and was visited by many famous people, including George Washington and Paul Revere. The Tavern is located on the beautiful inner residential streets of Charlestown. It is a staple for Charlestown residents as well as an exciting place for visitors who want to drink and dine in this historic spot. For food, we got the nachos and a burger. The nachos were super duper cheesy and the portion size was quite large. They also came with guacamole, salsa, and sour cream. We also got the Sons of Liberty burger, which came with sauteed mushrooms and Gruyere cheese. It was cooked medium done, just as we requested it. I personally really enjoyed coming to this restaurant. They have really nice vibes and great food. We were exhausted after walking up the Bunker Hill Monument, and this was the perfect place to rest and grab food. That is it for today's Charlestown video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and check out our other videos for more Boston travel guides.